"I will take this one, the redhead," said a man with a hefty purse of gold. "Pasha, this slave girl is quite headstrong. You may regret it," the merchant warned him. "No matter. We will tame her. I'll take her," the buyer replied. And the deal was struck. In the bustling markets of Istanbul, girls were sold. Amid the clamor, shouting, and the scent of Eastern spices, young women were brought in on camels and horses. White slave girls reacted differently. Some despaired, others grew sad and wilted, losing what charm they had left. If they remembered their families, any hope for a better fate melted away, along with their price. But most, having been captured as little girls, resigned themselves to their fate and hoped for something better. Among these girls was a Slavic girl later known as Roxelana. Roxelana did not fit the beauty standards of the harem. In the Sultan's harem, pale-skinned, dark-haired Circassian women were prized. Roxelana had fair skin and either light or reddish hair. She quickly entered the annals of history. Her exact origins remain uncertain. Some believe she was Ukrainian from Cheremovets. Yet in the 16th century, that city was part of Poland. Suleiman called her the daughter of a priest from Rohatin. Roxelana came from Ruthenia. He claimed the name Roxelana was not a real name, but rather indicated that she came from Roxelania. Theories that she was Italian or French lack any foundation. Nor was she Anastasia Lisowska, as 19th century Ukrainians suggested. Polish envoys who visited Istanbul during Suleiman's time did not mention her. This is odd, since more than 30 Polish envoys were received by the Sultan's council, and none of them wrote of the famous Polish woman at the Sultan's court. This casts doubt on the theory that she was Polish, though most evidence points to her being from Galicia, which was then under Polish rule. When was she captured? Possibly during a Tatar raid on Rohatin. Her path to the Sultan's palace is unknown until she gave birth to her firstborn in the year 1521 and became the Sultan's wife, with an annual income of 5,000 ducats. Upon arriving at the Old Palace and later Topkapi, Roxelana became a key figure at court. Girls in Istanbul were sometimes sold for a pair of shoes or half a horse. The harems of high-ranking officials expanded constantly, as power was measured by the number of beautiful women one possessed. The most beautiful were sent to the Sultan, the less attractive ones to viziers and pashas. Hurrem was gifted to the Sultan by his friend Ibrahim 2 months after his ascension in the year 1520. In the harem, she was given the name Hurrem, meaning joyful, cheerful, blooming. The name reflected her light-hearted nature and love of laughter, which was unusual given her circumstances in the harem. Mahidevran, the Sultan's second wife, initially saw no threat in Hurrem. "A Ruthenian girl?" she thought. "She's not even a real beauty." Besides, Mahidevran's son was the Sultan's eldest and heir. Alas, that only meant his half-brothers were likely to be strangled with a silk cord to avoid civil war in the empire. So how did Hurrem enchant the Sultan? Likely through her fiery spirit, thirst for knowledge, and boundless love. Earlier writers had described Slavic girls as, "Their cheeks are as lovely as roses. They walk like cypress trees. Their gait full of grace. When they speak, their lips are full of sweetness. Each is a master in the art of love, giving her soul to the friend she chooses." The Venetian Pietro Bragadin described Hurrem. "She was not beautiful, but she was pleasant and alluring." Others added, "Young, not beautiful, but graceful, petite," or "kind, modest, and deeply familiar with the Sultan's character." According to some sources, she had a slightly upturned nose, which contributed to her joyful expression. However, at the time, an upturned nose was considered a sign of common birth, which likely explains why Venetian observers downplayed her beauty. Noble Italian women mostly had straight noses. All portraits of Hurrem are based on descriptions, not actual depictions. Most noted her intellect, wit, and spirituality. It is said that after her wedding night, she asked the Sultan for something unheard of: access to the library. Suleiman was surprised. Concubines usually asked for jewelry or gowns, the boldest for higher allowances or luxury rooms. After giving birth to a son in the year 1521, she became the Sultan's wife. Over time, Suleiman grew closer and closer to Roxelana as she bore him more children. She was extremely intelligent by nature. She never showed malice, cunning, or deceit outwardly, hiding it all behind a smile. She stood out for her courage, showing no fear like the other harem girls. Sir George Young described her wedding, supposedly in the year 1530, when the mighty Sultan Suleiman chose a young Russian girl named Roxelana as his sultana. A grand reception was held. The wedding took place at the Topkapi Palace and outshone all previous ceremonies. Feasts and games were held on the city's main streets, lit up at night. Buildings were adorned with ribbons, and the people were allowed to join in the celebrations. Suleiman, Roxelana, and other palace guests wore gold-embroidered garments. Hurrem indeed loved gold. It is known she wore shalwars trimmed with golden lace. The Sultan was so enchanted by his beloved wife that he married her, making her nearly his equal. He even gave his most beautiful concubines as wives to the pashas. During his 46-year reign, Suleiman spent more than 13 years at war. During these campaigns, he missed Roxelana deeply. While in Hungary, which he had conquered in a fierce conflict with the Habsburg Empire, he wrote, "I miss you, Hurrem. In my dreams, there is only you." Her vitality stunned the Sultan and led to a remarkable 38-year bond of mutual loyalty between Suleiman the Magnificent and a former slave girl. At the time, their relationship was so unusual that Roxelana was accused of using witchcraft or love potions, allegedly aided by a Jewish woman named Trongilla. What is known is that Trongilla supplied the Sultana with clothes and luxury goods. Suleiman spared no expense on his beloved. It is said he once spent 100,000 ducats on her jewelry and luxuries. Hurrem's status at court grew to the point of threatening Mahidevran, and especially her son Mustafa. In bearing her own children, Roxelana aimed to protect them. They faced the threat of being strangled. To prevent this, Roxelana needed to disgrace Mahidevran. She calculated her moves carefully. But it was the proud Mahidevran, rumored to be a Circassian princess, who, sensing Suleiman's fading interest, first attacked Hurrem, pulling her hair and scratching her face. This scandal spread across Europe and was recorded by Pietro Bragadin. Hurrem then took a bold risk. She locked herself in her chambers and refused to appear before the Sultan. Any other concubine would have been strangled or thrown into the Bosphorus, but not Roxelana. Suleiman was so captivated that her defiance only intrigued him further. Meanwhile, Mustafa was sent away to govern Manisa. Mahidevran went with him. To secure the throne for her sons, Hurrem turned against Ibrahim. Ibrahim, the Grand Vizier, held immense power and wealth and supported Mahidevran and 21-year-old Mustafa, who was widely loved. On the night of March 15th, in the year 1536, mute and deaf guards stormed Ibrahim's bedroom and strangled him in his sleep. Such an order could only have come from the Sultan. It was likely not Roxelana's doing. Ibrahim was executed for his leniency toward the Habsburgs during the war. Hurrem only subtly encouraged it. Hurrem fought on, determined to protect her sons. After the fire in the old palace in the year 1541, she moved the harem into Topkapi Palace. There she saw her husband daily and influenced his politics. As the Genoese ambassador noted, Suleiman does nothing without consulting his wife. The older he gets, the more he yields to her. Even his slaves were stunned by Hurrem's power. They whispered that the Sultana had bewitched the Sultan. Because of this, the army and court disliked her and her children, but since the Sultan lived only with her, no one dared oppose him. Roxelana strove to secure power for one of her sons, with help from her daughter Mihrima. When Mehmed died of smallpox on November 6, 1543, Bayezid came to the fore, resembling his father in appearance and character. Yet, by tradition, the heir should have been Mustafa. Suleiman received letters between Mustafa and the Shah suggesting the prince was seeking help to depose his father. Historians believe this was a setup by Rustem, the Sultan's son-in-law and Mihrimah's husband. This sealed Mustafa's fate. When Mustafa entered his father's tent to kiss his hand, he was greeted instead by 6 executioners with tongues cut out so they could not speak. By law, a prince could not be executed by bloodshed. Mustafa tried to flee but was caught and strangled. The Janissaries were furious. They had loved Mustafa. To appease them, the Sultan offered Rustem as a scapegoat. It is said that upon hearing of Mustafa's death, Hürrem's son Cihangir died of grief. Selim and Bayezid then turned on each other. After Roxelana's death, the brothers clashed. Bayezid fled to Persia and sought refuge with Shah Tahmasp, a long-standing enemy of the Ottoman Empire. But for 4,000 gold coins, even the Shah ceased to be an enemy. Bayezid's men were slaughtered, and he and his 4 sons were handed over to Ottoman executioners and strangled. After the Sultan's death, it was Selim who ascended the throne. Suleiman truly and unconditionally loved Hürrem until the end. She was indeed an empress. All of Europe knew her power, wrote the 19th century French historian Rambaud. Indeed, European historians often called Roxelana an empress rather than a sultana, reflecting the imperial status of the Ottoman state. Roxelana was self-assured and actively involved in political life. She corresponded with the wife and sister of Shah Tahmasp, though they were Suleiman's enemies. However, the letters mainly discussed the construction of a grand mosque in Istanbul. She also corresponded with Sigismund Augustus's parents, the Polish queen of Italian origin, Bona Sforza, and her husband, Sigismund I. Roxelana, even called Isabella Jagiellon, Queen of Hungary, and daughter of Bona, her dearest daughter, and made secret agreements with Bona. Thus, the wife and daughter of Sigismund found an unexpected ally in the east. Moreover, Hürrem encouraged the Poles against the hated Habsburgs. In Istanbul itself, Roxelana left many legacies. She built a mosque, a free soup kitchen, a school, a fountain, and a hospital for women. Buildings founded by Roxelana, mostly designed by Sinan, were also erected in Ankara, Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, Edirne, and many other cities. She also sewed and embroidered shirts for her husband and the poor, never forgetting to be, above all, a beloved wife. At the end of her life, Hürrem was ill. Her illness remains unknown. In Edirne, where she stayed with the Sultan in late 1557 and early 1558, she felt awful. Hürrem returned to Istanbul with Suleiman and died there on April 15, 1558. The Sultan was devastated by grief. After her death, Suleiman gave up his former luxurious lifestyle. He devoted himself to philanthropy, funding public projects and distributing 3,000 gold coins from the Egyptian treasury to the poor and to scholars in Mecca and Medina. This likely reflected both his memory of Roxelana and his awareness of old age and the nearness of his final judgment. Suleiman died during his campaign in Hungary in the night between September 5th and 6th, 1566, surviving the love of his life by more than 8 years. He was buried in a mausoleum beside Roxelana,